The Castle of Lions had survived 1,000 battles across 1,000 worlds, but it had never faced anything like this. "Koran, I really need those shields back online," Princess Allura shouted from the castle's command deck, her hands flying across Altine control panels as another volley of plasma fire hammered against their failing defenses. Through the viewport, the Galra armada stretched across space like a swarm of metallic locusts. Hundreds of warships, all firing in coordinated patterns designed to overwhelm even the castle's formidable defensive capabilities. "I'm trying, Princess." Koran's voice crackled through the comm, strained with the particular panic of an engineer watching systems fail faster than he could repair them. But the quantum flux from that last hit destabilized the Teludav's dimensional matrix. "If we try to open a wormhole now, there's no telling where or when we'll end up. I'll take unknown destination over definitely dead any day," Lance called out from his position in the Blue Lion's cockpit, his voice carrying the forced humor he used when situations got genuinely terrifying. "Paladins, we can't hold them off much longer. These Galra cruisers just keep coming." Keith gritted his teeth as Red Lion barrel rolled through a storm of enemy fire, his Bayard configured as a sword glowing with quintessence energy. The Red Paladin's connection to his lion ran deeper than conscious thought. They moved as one, predator and pilot, unified in purpose. But even that perfect synchronization couldn't overcome simple mathematics. 5 lions against an armada was suicide, and they all knew it. "Allura's right," Keith transmitted across all Paladin channels, his leadership voice cutting through the chaos. "We jump now or we don't jump at all. Everyone form up on the castle. We're getting out of here." "Keith, the Teludav is unstable," Pidge protested from Green Lion, her analytical mind immediately recognizing the danger. "If the wormhole collapses while we're in transit, we could be scattered across dimensions, lost in the quantum foam between realities, or we stay here and get blown to pieces," Keith interrupted. "I'm not losing anyone today. All lions, return to the castle, now." The 5 lions of Voltron disengaged from combat and accelerated toward the castle, their distinctive colors: red, blue, yellow, green, and the shimmering pink-white of the Blue Lion now piloted by Allura herself, standing out against the darkness of space. Behind them, Galra fighters pursued like sharks sensing blood, their plasma cannons filling space with deadly energy. "Teludav charging," Allura announced, her voice carrying the weight of Altine royal authority mixed with genuine fear. "All lions, prepare for emergency wormhole transit. This is going to be rough." The space before the castle tore open, not with the usual clean precision of Altine wormhole technology, but with violent, chaotic energy that pulsed with sickly purple light. The dimensional rift looked wrong, felt wrong, as if reality itself was screaming in protest at being forced open when the systems weren't ready. "That doesn't look stable," Hunk shouted from Yellow Lion, his engineer's instincts and fear of death both triggering simultaneously. "That looks like the opposite of stable. That looks like—" The Galra armada fired simultaneously, hundreds of plasma bolts converging on the castle and lions. Allura made a split-second decision and threw full power to the Teludav. The wormhole expanded violently, swallowing the castle and all 5 lions just as enemy fire reached their position. For 3 seconds that felt like eternity. The Paladins experienced something that defied description. Not movement through space, but movement through the fabric of reality itself. Dimensions folded and unfolded around them. The castle's systems screamed warnings in Altine that even Koran's centuries of experience couldn't interpret. And through it all, the lions, connected to their paladins through bonds that transcended normal physics, tried desperately to hold together. They failed. The wormhole destabilized catastrophically. Instead of emerging together at a safe destination, the dimensional rift fragmented into 5 separate tiers in space-time. Each lion was caught by a different gravitational current in the quantum foam and hurled away from their teammates, scattered across an unfamiliar galaxy like seeds thrown to the wind. Keith felt Red Lion shudder as they were torn from formation, felt his connection to the other paladins stretch and then snap as dimensional barriers slammed between them. He had one glimpse of Blue Lion tumbling away in a different direction, one moment of Lance's voice cutting out mid-shout, and then Red was alone. They emerged from the collapsing wormhole into normal space with enough velocity that even Red Lion's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate. Keith was slammed against his pilot harness as Red's systems fought to arrest their momentum. Warning indicators lit up across his dashboard. Not critical damage, but enough to know they'd been hurt by the transit. "Red, talk to me," Keith said aloud, his hands moving across controls while his mind reached through their bond. "How bad is it?" Red Lion's response came as feelings rather than words. Pain, yes, but also determination. They were operational. They could fight. But they needed time to repair full capabilities, and more importantly, they needed to find the rest of their pride. Keith activated his comm system, cycling through all paladin frequencies. "Lance, Pidge, Hunk, Allura? Anyone reading me?" Static. "Koran, Castle of Lions, do you copy?" More static, but with an undertone that suggested his signals weren't reaching anywhere. He was completely cut off. "Okay," Keith said to himself, forcing calm through years of Blade of Marmara training. "First priority, figure out where we are. Second priority, find the others. Third priority, get home. Simple." He triggered Red's sensors, scanning local space for any indication of location. What came back made his breath catch. Ships. Dozens of them. Engaged in a massive battle approximately 5,000 kilometers from his position. But these weren't Galra vessels or any design Keith recognized from their campaign across multiple galaxies. The ships were angular, industrial-looking, painted in whites and grays. Some were elegant wedge-shaped capital ships bristling with weapons. Others were smaller, more utilitarian craft that seemed designed for atmospheric operations as much as space combat. And they were losing badly. The enemy force, sleeker, more uniform vessels in browns and tans, was systematically destroying the white and gray fleet with coordinated precision that reminded Keith of Galra military tactics. He watched through Red's visual feed as one of the smaller defending ships took concentrated fire, its hull breaching, atmosphere venting, life signs winking out on his sensors. Keith's jaw clenched. He didn't know these people, didn't know their conflict or which side was right, but he knew what it looked like when someone was being slaughtered. And his instincts, honed by years of defending the universe as a paladin of Voltron, made the decision before his tactical mind could catch up. "Red, those ships need help. You with me?" Red Lion's answering roar shook through their connection. Always. They dove toward the battle at full thrust, Red's damaged systems protesting but responding. Keith's hands moved across controls with the fluid precision of someone who'd flown this lion through 100 combat situations, configuring weapon systems and preparing for engagement against an unknown enemy. On the surface of the planet below, a world the Republic called stars.If, Jedi General Anakin Skywalker stood in a command post overlooking the city, watching holographic displays showing the space battle above. The Separatist fleet had arrived with overwhelming force, and despite the Republic's best efforts, they were being pushed back. "General, we're losing the orbital battle," Captain Rex reported, his clone trooper armor bearing the distinctive blue markings of the 501st Legion. "Admiral Yularen is requesting immediate withdrawal before the Separatists achieve total space superiority. If we don't pull back now, we'll lose the entire fleet." Anakin's hands clenched into fists. Retreat. Always retreat. The story of the Clone Wars seemed to be one long series of tactical withdrawals, planets abandoned, ground surrendered to Separatist occupation. He was tired of running, tired of watching good soldiers die because the Republic was always one step behind. "Tell Yularen to hold position," Anakin ordered. "We're not abandoning stars.If, not yet." "Master, the tactical situation is untenable." Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice cut in from across the command post, his tone carrying the patient reason that had been trying to temper Anakin's aggressive instincts for over a decade. "We cannot hold against that fleet. Withdrawing now allows us to regroup and abandon another world to separatist occupation," Anakin interrupted. "How many planets have we tactically withdrawn from, Obi-Wan? How many civilian populations have we left to suffer under battle droid occupation because we didn't have the resources to hold?" Before Obi-Wan could respond, every display in the command post suddenly flared with new contacts. A massive energy signature had appeared in the orbital battle zone, something moving faster than any Republic or Separatist vessel, weaving through the combat with impossible agility. "What is that?" Rex demanded, studying the tactical feed. "New Separatist weapon?" Anakin reached out through the Force, trying to sense the nature of this new arrival. What came back was strange. Not the cold, mechanical presence of battle droids or the calculating minds of organic Separatist commanders. This felt alive, passionate, burning with righteous fury that reminded Anakin uncomfortably of his own emotional intensity. "I don't think it's Separatist," Anakin said slowly. "I think it's—" The displays showed it clearly now. A massive mechanical lion, bright red with golden accents, its design somewhere between animal and machine, tore through the Separatist formation like a predator through prey. Energy beams lanced from its jaw-mounted cannons, more precise than any droid targeting Anakin had witnessed. Separatist frigates that should have required sustained bombardment from Republic cruisers simply exploded as the Red Lion's weapons found critical systems with uncanny accuracy. "By the Force," Obi-Wan breathed. "What manner of weapon is that?" Keith felt Red Lion's joy through their bond as they engaged the enemy fleet. These ships, whatever they were, fought like Galra vessels but with less sophisticated AI coordination. Their weapons were dangerous, yes, but their targeting solutions were predictable. Their formation tactics were rigid rather than adaptive. Compared to fighting the Galra Empire's finest, this was almost easy. Almost. A trio of enemy fighters, sleek, vulture-like craft that moved with disturbing grace, broke from formation and targeted Red. Keith threw his lion into a barrel roll that defied the fighters' tracking solutions, came up behind them, and fired. 2 exploded immediately. The third managed to evade, demonstrating better reflexes than its companions. "Okay, so some of you can actually fly," Keith muttered. He'd learned never to underestimate enemies just because the first wave was easy. The Galra had taught him that lesson painfully. Red's sensors suddenly screamed warning. 3 of the larger enemy ships, each easily 5 times Red's mass, were converging on their position, weapons charging for a coordinated strike that would be impossible to dodge. Keith reached through his bond with Red, feeling for that deeper connection, that place where Paladin and Lion became more than the sum of their parts. He felt Red's quintessence surge, responding to his need. And the world slowed. Not literally, but perceptually. The way it always did when Keith fully surrendered to instinct and let Red guide their movements. The enemy weapons fired, massive energy bolts that should have vaporized them. Red moved through the gaps between those bolts with millimeters to spare, close enough that Keith's sensors registered the heat, but far enough that the actual destructive energy missed. They emerged from the kill box unscathed and immediately counterattacked. Red's jaw cannon fired at full power, the concentrated beam punching through the lead ship's hull and triggering secondary explosions that tore it apart from the inside. On Christophsis, Anakin felt the Force ripple with something he'd never quite experienced before. The pilot of that red mechanical lion wasn't Force-sensitive, at least not in any way Anakin recognized. But there was a connection there, a bond between warrior and machine that almost resembled what he'd felt from the best clone pilots when they truly synchronized with their fighters. "That's not possible," Anakin said aloud. "That level of precision, that combat effectiveness. No droid could fly like that, and no organic pilot could survive those G-forces without augmentation or Force abilities," Obi-Wan finished. "Yet clearly, someone is flying that vessel, and whoever they are, They're turning the tide of the orbital battle single-handedly. It was true. The Red Lion's intervention had disrupted the Separatist attack formation, forcing enemy ships to break off their assault on the Republic fleet to deal with this unexpected threat. Admiral Yularen was already capitalizing on the confusion, repositioning his forces for a counterattack that would have been suicidal moments earlier. "General Skywalker," Rex said urgently, "I'm receiving reports from the surface. That red, whatever it is, it's descending toward our position. ETA 3 minutes. Anakin made a decision. "Prepare a defensive perimeter, but hold fire unless fired upon. I want to meet this pilot. Anyone who fights like that is either our best new ally or our most dangerous new enemy. Either way, I need to know which." Keith guided Red toward the planet's surface, his sensors painting a picture of ongoing ground combat below. More of those angular white and gray forces, which he tentatively identified as the Defenders based on their space tactics, were engaged with legions of droids on the crystal plains surrounding what looked like a major city. Droids. Keith had fought plenty of Galra sentries, but these were different. Skeletal, mass-produced, moving with the mechanical precision of pure programming rather than any kind of intelligence. And they were being slaughtered by soldiers in white armor who fought with discipline and coordination that impressed even Keith's critical eye. Red touched down on a landing platform overlooking the battle, their arrival announced by the distinctive thrum of quintessence-powered systems. Keith remained in his pilot seat for a moment, assessing the situation through Red's sensors. Approximately 50 armored soldiers had taken positions around the platform, their weapons trained on his Lion but not firing. Disciplined, professional. Behind them, 2 figures without armor, wearing robes and carrying what Keith's sensors identified as plasma-based melee weapons, approached with the confident stride of commanders. Keith took a breath, centered himself the way Shiro had taught him years ago, and activated Red's exit protocol. The Lion's mouth opened, extending a ramp that allowed Keith to walk down and meet these strangers face to face. Anakin Skywalker studied the figure emerging from the mechanical Lion with professional assessment and personal curiosity. Human, male, probably early 20s. Dark hair with a distinctive red and white mullet that suggested either a fashion choice or practical helmet accommodation. Wearing black and red armor that was clearly advanced, but not any design in Republic databases. And most interestingly, carrying a weapon at his hip, some kind of energy blade based on the power signature, and moving with the coiled readiness of someone who'd seen extensive combat. "I'm General Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Republic," Anakin said, his hand resting near his lightsaber but not threatening. "You just saved a lot of lives up there. Thank you, but I need to know. Who are you, and what is that machine?" Keith sized up the speaker. Tall, confident, carrying 2 weapons and wearing robes that seemed completely impractical for combat, but somehow worked for him anyway. Young for a general, probably close to Keith's own age. And there was something about him, an intensity that Keith recognized because he saw it in mirrors. This was someone who led from the front, who'd earned his rank through action rather than politics. "I'm Keith," he replied, deliberately not using Paladin, until he understood the local political situation better. "Pilot of the Red Lion, and I'm lost. That battle up there, which side are you on, and what's the fight about?" "We're the Galactic Republic," Anakin replied. "We're fighting the Separatist Alliance, a confederacy of systems that want to break away from the Republic. This particular battle is for control of Christophsis, a crystal world that's strategically valuable to both sides." Keith processed that. A galactic government fighting a civil war against breakaway systems. He'd seen that pattern before with various civilizations across the universe. Sometimes the central government was the oppressor. Sometimes the rebels were the villains. It was never as simple as either side claimed. "The ships I destroyed," Keith said carefully. "They were trying to glass your fleet, targeting civilian sections, crew quarters. That looked like they were trying to maximize casualties, not just win a battle. Is that standard tactics for your separatists?" Anakin's expression darkened. "The Separatist Alliance is controlled by corporations that see people as assets or obstacles, nothing more. They use droid armies because droids don't question orders to commit atrocities. So yes, maximizing Republic casualties is standard doctrine for them. Why do you ask? Because I needed to know I was shooting at the right people, Keith replied. Where I come from, we've seen too many wars where both sides claim to be the good guys while committing genocide. I'm not getting involved in another one of those. A principled position, Obi-Wan interjected, stepping forward with his diplomatic smile firmly in place. I'm Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. Might I ask where you come from actually is? Because your vessel, this Red Lion, as you called it, doesn't match any known technology in our galaxy. And your arrival was rather dramatic. One doesn't simply appear in the middle of a space battle without some fascinating story behind it. Keith hesitated. How much should he reveal? The Blade of Marmara had taught him to be cautious with information, to assess potential allies thoroughly before exposing vulnerabilities. But his instincts, the same instincts that had made him a paladin, said these people were genuine. They fought to protect, not to conquer. I'm from another galaxy, Keith said finally. Maybe another dimension entirely. I'm still not sure. My team and I were forced through an unstable wormhole fleeing an enemy fleet. We got separated during transit. I need to find them and figure out how to get home. But until then, he gestured at the battlefield below where white armored soldiers were pushing back droid forces. Until then, I can help. If you're really fighting to protect people, I'm willing to fight alongside you. Anakin felt the Force ripple with something that might have been approval, or possibly warning. It was hard to tell sometimes. But he recognized the look in Keith's eyes, the determination of someone who'd lost comrades and would do anything to get them back. Anakin had worn that expression enough times to recognize it in others. We could use the help, Anakin admitted. Your Red Lion just proved it can take on an entire fleet. With that kind of firepower on our side, we might actually hold Christophesis instead of conducting another tactical withdrawal. The bitterness in his voice was evident. But I have questions. A lot of questions. Starting with, what are you in that machine? I've never felt anything like you through the Force. You're not Force sensitive, but there's a connection between you and that lion that almost feels like a Force bond. Force, Keith repeated. I don't know what that is, but Red and we're bonded. The Lions of Voltron choose their paladins. Once chosen, we're connected in ways that I can't really explain. I feel what Red feels. Red responds to my instincts as much as my commands. We're partners. Voltron, Anakin repeated, the name meaning nothing to him but somehow feeling significant. You mentioned a team. How many of these lions are there? 5, Keith said, and for the first time, his carefully maintained composure cracked slightly, showing the worry beneath. 5 lions, 5 paladins. We're supposed to form Voltron, the defender of the universe, but separated like this. He shook his head. They could be anywhere. Any of them could be in danger. I need to find them. Then we'll help you find them, Anakin decided immediately. Republic resources at your disposal, long-range sensors, communication networks, everything. We'll locate your team and get you back together, but in exchange, I need you to help us hold this world. Fair trade. Keith studied Anakin for a long moment, and in that moment, something like understanding passed between two warriors who'd both learned to lead too young, who'd both lost too many people they cared about, who both burned with the kind of intensity that drove them forward when more reasonable people would have quit. Fair trade, Keith agreed, extending his hand. Anakin shook it, feeling through the Force that this was a pivotal moment. This stranger from another galaxy, piloting a mechanical lion that defied all known technology, was going to change the Clone Wars. He didn't know how yet, but he could feel destiny clicking into place, the way it always did when the Force was moving pieces around its cosmic game board. So, Keith said, looking at the battle still raging below. When's the next fight? Because Red and I are ready to go. Anakin grinned. The fierce, slightly reckless grin that Obi-Wan associated with incoming catastrophe and Padme found charming despite her better judgment. Actually, we've got a separatist ground assault starting in about 20 minutes. Heavy armor, probably those new super tanks we've been hearing about. Think your Red Lion can handle mechanized combat? Keith's answering smile was sharp. Red's taken on everything from asteroid bases to fleet carriers. Some tanks won't be a problem. Just point us at the enemy and try to keep up. Obi-Wan sighed quietly. He'd known Anakin was going to love this stranger the moment he showed the same reckless disregard for overwhelming odds that characterized his former Padawan's entire tactical philosophy. This is going to be interesting, Obi-Wan muttered to himself. Interesting in the sense that usually precedes massive property damage and lengthy after-action reports. Below them, the Separatist army advanced. AATs and supertanks, supported by thousands of battle droids, moving in formations designed to overwhelm Republic defensive positions through sheer mass. They had no idea they were about to face something that the Clone Wars had never seen before. A paladin of Voltron, bonded to his lion, fighting with the fury of someone who'd lost his team and would do anything to get them back. The Battle of Christophsis was about to become very interesting indeed. If you want to see more epic crossovers where legendary heroes collide, hit that subscribe button and drop which paladin you want to see next in the comments below. The lions are scattered across the galaxy, and the adventure is just beginning. The galaxy was vast beyond comprehension, and 4 paladins were learning just how isolating that vastness could be when you were separated from your team. Lance had always prided himself on being the team's heart, the one who kept spirits up when missions went sideways, who cracked jokes to diffuse tension, who reminded everyone that they were more than just warriors. But it was hard to maintain that optimism when Blue Lion crash-landed on a planet he'd never heard of, surrounded by people he didn't know, while his team was scattered across an unfamiliar galaxy. The planet was called Ryloth, and it was dying. Blue touched down in a canyon system outside the capital city of Lesu, her system sparking from the rough transit through the unstable wormhole. Lance ran diagnostics while his heart hammered in his chest, checking for any sign of the other lions on his sensors. Nothing, just static and unfamiliar star patterns. "Okay, Blue," Lance said aloud, his voice echoing in the cockpit. "We've been through worse. Remember that time we got trapped in the quantum abyss? Or when we had to fight our way out of that Galra prison? We survived those. We'll survive this. We just need to—" His sensors flared with proximity warnings. Lance's hands flew to weapons controls as Blue's visual feed showed him what was approaching. Massive walking tanks, easily 40 meters tall, stomping through the canyon with the mechanical grace of nightmare insects. Behind them marched thousands of skeletal droids, their weapons raised, advancing toward what looked like civilian settlements carved into the canyon walls. Lance didn't speak the local language. Didn't know the politics, but he knew what an invasion looked like, and he knew which side he was on. "Blue, those civilians need help. You thinking what I'm thinking?" Blue Lion's answering growl resonated through their bond. Always. The Blue Lion launched from concealment like a missile, her sleek form cutting through the air with grace that Lance had spent years perfecting. He'd always been the team's sniper, the sharpshooter who could make impossible shots look easy. Now he proved it on an alien battlefield. Blue's shoulder-mounted cannons tracking targets with precision that the Separatist battle droid's primitive AI couldn't match. The first AAT never knew what hit it. Lance's shot struck its reactor core from 800 meters, detonating it from the inside. The second and third tanks tried to return fire, their plasma cannons tracking Blue's movements. Lance pulled off a barrel roll that would have made any pilot instructor cry, evaded the incoming fire, and returned 2 shots that reduced both tanks to slag. "And that's how you do it," Lance whooped, adrenaline singing through his veins. Fighting alone wasn't ideal, but he'd take winning alone over losing with company. High above in a Republic Elat gunship, Jedi Commander Ahsoka Tano watched the engagement with fascination and disbelief. She'd been coordinating the defense of Ryloth against Separatist occupation forces when this, whatever it was, had appeared and single-handedly destroyed an AAT column that should have required an entire battalion to neutralize. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Ahsoka transmitted to her clone officer. "That blue mechanical creature just took out 3 tanks in 30 seconds. "Affirmative, Commander," the pilot replied, his voice carrying professional calm that didn't quite hide his own shock. "Unknown contact appears to be highly mobile, heavily armed, and is engaging separatist forces. Orders?" Ahsoka reached out through the Force, trying to sense the nature of this new arrival. What she felt was unexpected. Not the cold, mechanical void of battle droids or the calculating minds of organic separatist commanders. This felt warm, alive, and carrying an emotional signature that reminded her of herself actually. Confident, skilled, but covering deeper loneliness with surface bravado. "Take us down," Ahsoka decided. "Carefully. I want to talk to whoever's piloting that thing. Anyone who fights separatist forces that effectively is either our best new friend or needs to be recruited immediately." Lance had just finished reducing another wave of battle droids to scrap when Blue's sensors pinched him about incoming aircraft. His finger moved toward weapons controls, then hesitated as he got a better look. These ships, boxy, industrial, painted in Republic colors, weren't firing. They were approaching slowly, almost cautiously, broadcasting on multiple frequencies in a language his Lion's universal translator was struggling to parse. "Okay, Blue, what do you think? Friend or foe?" Blue's response came as feelings: curiosity, caution, but not hostility. These weren't the same as the droid army they'd just been fighting. Different faction, possibly friendly. "All right, let's try the diplomatic approach," Lance said, though his hands stayed near weapons controls just in case. He activated Blue's external speakers, configured his helmet translator, and broadcast, "Unknown ships, this is Lance of the Blue Lion. I'm not looking for a fight with you, just trying to figure out where I am and help some people who looked like they needed it." The response came in accented but comprehensible basic. "Blue Lion, this is Commander Ahsoka Tano of the Galactic Republic. Thank you for the assist with those AATs. You just saved about 300 Twi'lek civilians from being relocated to labor camps. I'd like to meet you face to face if you're willing. We can land on that plateau to your north. No weapons, no tricks, just talking." Lance considered. He needed allies if he was going to find his team. And whoever this Commander Tano was, she'd been fighting the same droids he'd just engaged, which suggested they were on the same side. "All right, Commander, Blue and I will meet you on that plateau. But fair warning, I'm a little jumpy right now, so if anyone tries anything aggressive, I'm shooting first and asking questions later." "Noted, and trust me, I understand jumpiness. Tano out." 10 minutes later, Lance walked down Blue's ramp to meet the strangest person he'd encountered since leaving his own galaxy. She was young, maybe a year or two younger than him, which seemed insane for a military commander. Orange skin marked with white patterns, head tails, Montrals and Leku, his translator supplied. That gave her an almost regal appearance, and carrying 2 lightsabers at her belt, both currently deactivated but clearly well-maintained weapons. "Commander Tano." Lance extended his hand in the universal human gesture of peaceful greeting. "Lance McLean, Blue Paladin of Voltron. Thanks for not shooting me." Ahsoka shook his hand, her grip firm and her smile genuine. "Thanks for taking out those tanks before they could destroy the refugee camp. I'm Ahsoka, and did you say Paladin? Like a holy warrior or something?" "More like defender of the universe," Lance tried to explain. "It's complicated. The short version is, I pilot the Blue Lion of Voltron. I'm supposed to have a team of 4 other paladins, and we got separated when our wormhole destabilized. Now I'm trying to find them while apparently being in the middle of someone else's war." "Welcome to the Clone Wars," Ahsoka said with the particular dry humor of someone who'd seen too much combat too young. "Republic versus Separatists. We're the good guys, mostly, and they're the bad guys who use droid armies to commit atrocities. Any enemy of theirs is potentially a friend of ours." She gestured at Blue Lion. That's incredible technology. I've never seen anything move like that. Is it droid-controlled or are you actually piloting it? I'm piloting, Lance confirmed, feeling oddly defensive on Blue's behalf. Blue and I are bonded. She's not a droid. She's alive in ways I can't really explain. We're partners. She? Ahsoka's expression showed interest rather than skepticism. The machine has a gender. The lion has a personality, Lance corrected. And yeah, Blue's definitely a she. Trust me, I've been flying her long enough to know. He paused, looking at the canyon where civilians were cautiously emerging from their hiding places. Your people down there, the Twi'leks, they're in danger, aren't they? That's why you're here. Ahsoka's expression darkened. The Separatists invaded Ryloth 3 weeks ago. They're strip mining the planet, forcing the population into labor camps, and executing anyone who resists. Master Windu and I were sent to liberate the planet, but she gestured at the limited forces visible around them. We're undermanned, outgunned, and fighting a war on 100 fronts simultaneously. We do what we can, but it's never enough. Lance heard the frustration in her voice, recognized it because he'd felt it himself every time Voltron had arrived too late to save a planet from Galra occupation. The weight of being responsible for millions of lives when you could barely protect thousands. Then it's good I'm here, Lance said with more confidence than he felt. Blue and I can help. We find my team, we form Voltron, and suddenly your military situation improves significantly. But in the meantime, he looked at Blue, feeling their connection pulse with readiness. Point us at the bad guys. We'll make them regret invading. Ahsoka studied him for a moment, and Lance got the distinct impression he was being assessed by someone with far more combat experience than her apparent age suggested. Finally, she smiled, a fierce warrior's grin that Lance immediately liked. I think we're going to get along great. Come on, I'll introduce you to the clone troopers and we'll figure out how to integrate a giant mechanical lion into our tactical plans. On Coruscant, the Republic's capital world. Hunk's yellow lion had made quite the impression by crash landing in the Senate district during rush hour. I'm so sorry about the sky bridge, Hunk called out through Yellow's external speakers as clone troopers cautiously surrounded his lion, their weapons raised but not firing. That was totally an accident. I tried to pull up, but Yellow's inertial dampeners were offline from the jump, and momentum is really hard to manage when you're entering atmosphere at... Okay, I'm probably explaining too much. Point is, really sorry about the property damage. The clone captain in charge of the security detachment lowered his weapon slightly, clearly confused by the concept of an unknown war machine apologizing for collateral damage. Unidentified craft, power down your systems and identify yourself immediately. Right, yes, powering down. Mostly. Hunk frantically worked his controls, bringing Yellow's weapons offline while keeping life support and defensive shields active. He'd seen enough alien first contacts go wrong to know that appearing completely vulnerable was a bad idea. I'm Hunk, pilot of the Yellow Lion. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm actually lost and trying to find my friends. Also, is anyone hurt? Because if anyone's hurt, I can help. I've got medical supplies and engineering tools and... Stand down! A new voice cut through the tension, carrying authority that made even the clone troopers straighten to attention. Through Yellow's visual sensors, Hunk saw an older man in Jedi robes approaching. White beard, serene expression, carrying himself with the dignity of someone who'd seen everything and remained unimpressed by most of it. I am Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, the man announced, looking up at Yellow Lion with professional curiosity rather than fear or hostility. You've made quite an entrance into Republic space, young man. Might I suggest we discuss your situation somewhere less public? The Senate district has holonews cameras everywhere, and I suspect neither of us wants this incident broadcast across the galaxy before we understand what we're dealing with. Hunk felt a wave of relief so powerful it made him dizzy. Someone reasonable. Someone willing to talk instead of shoot. Yes, talking. I love talking. I'm very good at talking. Sometimes too good. Keith says I talk too much when I'm nervous. which I am right now because I'm separated from my team in an unknown galaxy, and perhaps we could continue this conversation after you exit your yellow lion, was it? Obi-Wan's tone carried the patient amusement of someone dealing with a nervous teenager, which Hunk technically still was despite years of being a paladin. I promise you'll be treated as a guest, not a prisoner, though I will need you to explain how you managed to appear in Coruscant's upper atmosphere without triggering any of our early warning systems. 20 minutes later, Hunk sat in a Republic military briefing room, surrounded by clone commanders and Jedi masters, trying to explain Voltron and wormholes and the Galra Empire to people who'd never encountered anything outside their own galaxy. So these lions of yours are sentient machines bonded to specific pilots, Obi-Wan summarized, stroking his beard thoughtfully. And when all 5 lions combine, they form a larger construct called Voltron, the defender of the universe. Fascinating. Almost like a mechanical version of Jedi battle meditation, where multiple minds synchronize to achieve greater than the sum of their parts. That's actually a pretty good comparison, Hunk admitted. Though Voltron's more about physical combination than mental connection. When we form Voltron, the lions literally connect to create a single massive robot. It's the most powerful weapon in our galaxy. Or was. In the galaxy we came from. Which is not this galaxy. I'm still processing that part. And your yellow lion, a clone commander interjected, studying holographic displays showing Yellow's specifications, is designed primarily for engineering and heavy assault. The armor plating is significantly thicker than the other lions based on these scans, and your weapon systems prioritize sustained fire over precision strikes. Yellow's the tank of the team, Hunk confirmed proudly. She can take hits that would destroy the other lions and keep fighting. Plus, she's got all kinds of engineering capabilities, repair systems, construction tools, sensor arrays for analyzing enemy tech. I'm the team's engineer, so Yellow's built to support that role. Useful, the commander noted. Very useful. Sir, he addressed Obi-Wan, if this yellow lion is as capable as initial scans suggest, we could use it in our defensive fortifications. The Separatists have been probing Coruscant's orbital defenses for weeks. Having a mobile weapons platform that can absorb heavy fire while our own forces maneuver could change our tactical calculations significantly. I'm not leaving Coruscant until I find my team, Hunk said firmly, surprising himself with his own conviction. But while I'm here, yeah, I'll help defend the planet. Yellow and I are pretty good at that whole protecting people thing. It's kind of our job. Obi-Wan smiled, a genuine expression of warmth that made Hunk relax slightly. Then welcome to Coruscant, Hunk of the Yellow Lion. I suspect you'll fit in quite well with the clone troopers. They appreciate straightforward honesty and dedication to protecting others, both of which you seem to possess in abundance. In Separatist space, far from Republic assistance, Pidge was having a significantly worse time. Green Lion had crashed on a remote moon, her systems damaged badly enough that Pidge couldn't risk taking off without proper repairs. And within hours of landing, Separatist probe droids had found her. Within days, a Separatist task force had arrived to investigate this unknown alien technology that had appeared in their territory. Pidge had fought. Green's cloaking systems and technical capabilities had kept her hidden initially, allowing Pidge to sabotage the Separatist search efforts and create false trails. But eventually, numbers and resources overwhelmed even her considerable technical skills. When they'd threatened to bombard the moon's surface, destroying Green Lion, Pidge had made the hardest choice of her life. She'd surrendered. Now she sat in a Separatist detention cell, her armor confiscated, her Bayard taken, separated from Green, who'd been moved to some kind of research facility. The cell was dark, cold, designed to break prisoners psychologically before interrogation even began. Pidge refused to break. "You're wasting your time," she said aloud, knowing her captors were monitoring. "I'm not telling you anything about Voltron, the Lions, or how to replicate our technology. You can keep me here forever. I won't betray my team." "Forever may not be necessary," a new voice replied. The cell's door opened, revealing a figure Pidge hadn't seen before. Not a battle droid, but an organic separatist. A Nemoidian in expensive robes, carrying himself with the arrogance of someone used to owning rather than earning respect. "I am Newt Gunray, Viceroy of the Trade Federation. You've cost us significant resources with your little games, child. Sabotaging our droids, corrupting our sensor networks, leaving false trails that wasted weeks of search time. Quite impressive for someone so young." "I'm not a child," Pidge shot back. "I'm a paladin of Voltron, and you made a mistake taking me prisoner. My team will find me, and when they do, you're going to wish you'd never heard of the Lions." "Your team," Gunray repeated, pulling up a holographic display. "Yes, we've been monitoring Republic communications. Quite interesting. It seems you're not the only one of these Lions to arrive in our galaxy. There's a red one assisting the Republic on stars.If, a blue one on Ryloth, a yellow one on Coruscant. All separated, all alone. Rather like you." Pidge's stomach dropped, but she kept her expression neutral. They knew about the others. That was bad. But at least Keith, Lance, and Hunk were alive and fighting. That was something. "Where's the fifth one?" Gunray continued. "Your leaders speak of 5 Lions, 5 Paladins. We've accounted for 4. Where is your missing teammate?" "Like I'd tell you," Pidge replied. She didn't actually know where Allura was. That was the terrifying part. But showing fear would give these monsters leverage. "You'll tell us everything eventually," Gunray said with certainty that made Pidge's skin crawl. "Count Dooku himself is interested in your technology. The ability to create war machines that require no droid brain, no programming, just a bond with a pilot? That's valuable. Very valuable. We'll study your Green Lion, reverse engineer her systems, and replicate the technology. Then the Republic will face armies of Lion-class weapons, all under separatist control." "You can't replicate Voltron," Pidge said, allowing herself a cold smile. "The Lions choose their paladins. They're not just machines, they're alive. You can study Green all you want, you'll never understand her, and you definitely can't control her." "We shall see," Gunray replied. "In the meantime, you'll remain here. Comfortable enough to survive, uncomfortable enough to remember you're a prisoner. When you're ready to cooperate, simply inform the guard droids. I can be quite reasonable when my business interests are served." He left, the door sealing behind him with the finality of a tomb closing. Pidge sat in darkness, her mind already working on escape plans and sabotage options. She was a prisoner, yes. Separated from Green, yes. Alone in enemy territory with no immediate rescue prospects. But she was also Katie Holt, the paladin who'd infiltrated the Galra Empire itself, who'd hacked systems that should have been unhackable, who'd proven time and again that underestimating her was a fatal mistake. "Hold on, Green," Pidge whispered to her absent Lion. "I'm coming for you, and then we're finding the others. These separatists have no idea what they've started." In a research facility 300 kilometers away, Green Lion waited in enforced dormancy, her systems locked down by separatist containment fields. But deep in her quantum-bonded consciousness, she felt Pidge's determination and responded with her own fierce promise. Her paladin would come. They would reunite. And these beings who dared to cage a Lion of Voltron would learn why that was a mistake. On Christophsis, Keith stood beside Anakin as they reviewed tactical displays showing 4 scattered signatures across the galaxy. Republic long-range sensors had detected energy signatures matching Red Lion's quantum harmonics, proof that the other Lions existed and were operational. "Lance is on Ryloth with Ahsoka," Anakin reported. "Hunk's on Coruscant with Obi-Wan. Pidge," he hesitated. "Pidge is in separatist custody. They're holding her on a remote moon, studying her Lion. And your 5th teammate, Allura, you said? We haven't found her yet." Keith's jaw clenched. Pidge captured. The team scattered across an entire galaxy. And Allura completely missing. Every instinct screamed at him to jump in red and start rescuing them immediately. "I know what you're thinking," Anakin said quietly. Rush out, save everyone, deal with the consequences later. I'd do the same thing. But Keith, charging in without a plan gets people killed. Trust me, I've learned that lesson the hard way too many times. So what do you suggest? Keith demanded. Leave them? Wait while Pidge is interrogated and Allura's lost somewhere unknown? No, Anakin replied firmly. We mount a coordinated rescue operation. I'll take you to Ryloth first. It's closest, and picking up Lance gives you backup. Then we hit Coruscant, grab Hunk and Yellow. With 3 Lions and 3 Paladins, we have enough firepower to assault the Separatist facility, holding Pidge. And once we have 4 of you together, finding your 5th teammate becomes significantly easier. Keith wanted to argue, wanted to reject any plan that didn't involve immediate action. But he'd led Voltron long enough to recognize sound tactics when he heard them. How long to reach Ryloth? He asked. 12 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity, Anakin replied. I'll take my fighter, you take Red. We go in fast, grab Lance, and get out before the Separatists can respond. Sound good? Keith extended his hand. Let's do it. And Anakin, thanks for helping me find my team. Anakin shook it, grinning with the fierce joy of someone about to do something reckless and heroic. What are friends for? Besides, I've always wanted to see what happens when 5 of those lions combine. Something tells me it's going to be spectacular. In orbit above Christophsis, Red Lion prepared for the journey ahead, her quantum engines charging. Soon, the Pride would be reunited. And when that happened, the Clone Wars and the Separatists who dared to cage a Paladin were going to discover what Voltron truly meant. The Defender of the Universe was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Separatist fortress on the moon of Obadiah was designed to withstand siege warfare from Republic fleets, repel Jedi infiltration attempts, and contain the most dangerous prisoners in Separatist custody. Its designers had accounted for every threat in the Republic's arsenal. They had not accounted for Voltron. 3 lions descended on the moon with coordinated precision that spoke to years of fighting as a unit. Red, Blue, and Yellow had reunited on Ryloth 12 hours earlier. A joyous moment of relief when Lance had seen Keith's lion drop out of hyperspace, followed by Hunk emerging from a Republic transport. The 3 Paladins had shared a brief moment of pure emotion, hugs, laughter, Lance making a joke about Keith's dramatic entrance, Hunk nearly crushing them both in a bear hug, before reality reasserted itself. Pidge was still captive, Allura was still missing, and they had work to do. Now, with Republic forces providing orbital support, the 3 lions approached Obadiah's fortress from different vectors, their attacks synchronized with the precision of Paladins who'd conducted 100 extractions together. Remember, Keith transmitted across their private channel, we're here for Pidge and Green. Everything else is secondary. Lance, you and Blue provide long-range support and take out their anti-air defenses. Hunk, Yellow punches through their main gate and draws fire. I'll infiltrate with Red, locate Pidge, and extract. Simple, clean, no unnecessary risks. Since when have we ever done anything simple or clean? Lance replied. But his tone carried focus rather than his usual humor. One of their own was in enemy hands. This was personal. Blue and I are in position. Those turrets are about to have a really bad day. Yellow's ready to knock, Hunk added. Though, Keith, their main gate looks pretty reinforced, like designed to stop capital ship bombardment, reinforced. Are we sure Yellow can? We've punched through Galra dreadnought hulls, Hunk, Keith interrupted. You can handle a door. On my mark, 3, 2, 1, execute. Blue Lion's shoulder-mounted cannons spoke first, precision shots that vaporized the fortress's defensive turrets before their droid operators could track the incoming threat. Lance's accuracy was phenomenal. Each shot found a critical system. Each impact created cascading failures in the Separatist defensive network. Turrets down, Lance reported. You've got a clear approach. Yellow Lion charged the main gate like a battering ram with jet engines. The reinforced Durasteel barrier, designed to withstand Republic artillery, met 60 tons of Voltron Lion moving at maximum velocity. The gate didn't stand a chance. It crumpled, tore, and collapsed inward as Yellow crashed through in an explosion of sparks and twisted metal. "We're in!" Hunk called out, Yellow's cannons immediately engaging the battle droids that swarmed to defend the breach. "Man, these droids are way less scary than Galra sentries. Is it weird that I'm nostalgic for enemies that actually challenged us?" Red Lion came in from above, using the distraction Yellow created to slip through the fortress's upper defenses. Keith's bond with Red guided them through narrow corridors and defensive choke points with the fluid grace of a predator. His sensors painted a three-dimensional map of the facility, highlighting energy signatures that matched Green Lion's quantum frequency. "I've got Green's location," Keith transmitted. "Sub-level 7, heavily shielded research bay. Pidge's bio-sign is—" Keith's voice tightened. "She's 3 levels up, separate detention block. They split them up." "Smart," Lance noted. "Keep the Paladin away from her Lion. Neither can break out effectively. We'll need to hit both locations simultaneously." "Agreed," Keith replied, already calculating approach vectors. "Lance, can you get Blue into position near the detention block? You'll need to extract Pidge while I get Green out of containment." "Keith, we should stick together," Hunk started. "No time," Keith interrupted. "The Separatists know we're here. They're already signaling for reinforcements. We extract both targets simultaneously, or we risk losing one when their backup arrives. Trust me, this is the play." A pause. Then Lance. "All right, fearless leader. Blue and I are moving to the detention level. But Keith, don't do anything stupid while we're separated. I know that's hard for you, but try." Says the guy who once tried to flirt with a Galra commander during a firefight. Keith shot back, allowing himself the briefest smile. The banter was good. It meant they were slipping back into team dynamics, their bond as paladins reasserting itself despite the trauma of separation. Red descended deeper into the fortress, Keith's hands moving across controls with practiced ease while his mind reached through his bond with Red, letting the Lion's instincts guide him through danger. They passed through 3 security checkpoints, each one exploding under Red's precise cannon fire, before droids could raise an alarm. The research bay was exactly where his sensors indicated, a massive chamber filled with separatist technology and, at its center, contained within energy fields and physical restraints, Green Lion. Keith felt a surge of relief so powerful it made his hands shake. Green was here, alive, operational, one step closer to reuniting the team. "Green," Keith transmitted on Voltron's private frequency, knowing the Lion would hear even if she couldn't respond through the containment fields. "Hold on. We're getting you out of there." Red's claws, extending from her paws like a cat unsheathing razors, tore through the research bay's entrance. Keith emerged from Red's cockpit, his Bayard configured as a sword, ready for close combat. What he found was a nightmare of separatist science. Green was connected to dozens of analysis devices, her systems being scanned and recorded by equipment that made Keith's blood boil. They were studying her, trying to understand her, treating a Lion of Voltron, a living, sentient being, as a machine to be reverse-engineered. "You have got to be kidding me," Keith growled. He moved toward the containment controls, his Bayard cutting through security systems with energy that made separatist technology look primitive by comparison. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Keith spun, Bayard raised, to find a figure standing at the research bay's far entrance. Not a battle droid, but an organic separatist, humanoid, elegant, carrying himself with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. His curved lightsaber hung at his belt, and his presence in the Force. Keith didn't understand the Force, but he could feel something radiating from this man, suggested power and danger. "I'm Count Dooku," the figure announced. "Former Jedi Master, current leader of the Separatist Alliance, and you must be one of these paladins who've been causing such disruption to my carefully laid plans. Tell me, young man, where did your lions come from? What kind of technology allows sentient machines to bond with organic pilots? It's quite fascinating, really." "Not here to chat," Keith replied, his grip tightening on his Bayard. "I'm here for my teammate's lion. You can either get out of my way or I'll go through you. Dooku's expression showed amusement rather than concern. Such confidence. It reminds me of young Skywalker, actually. All passion, no patience. Let me guess. You're the impulsive one of your team? The hothead who charges in without thinking and somehow survives through sheer determination. And you're the villain who talks too much, Keith shot back. I've fought enough of those to know how this goes, so either attack or move. I'm done wasting time. Dooku's lightsaber ignited, a crimson blade that hummed with contained power. Very well. Let's see if your Bayard can match a Sith Lord's lightsaber. He attacked with the speed of someone enhanced by the Force, his blade coming in from an angle Keith's eyes couldn't quite track. But Keith didn't need to see it. His instincts, honed by years of Blade of Marmora training, guided his Bayard up to intercept. The weapons met in a shower of sparks, Dooku's lightsaber meeting Altine technology that was never designed for this universe but somehow worked anyway. Remarkable, Dooku said, genuinely impressed as they exchanged strikes. Your weapon shouldn't be able to block a lightsaber, yet here we are. What kind of energy field does it generate? How does it maintain cohesion under stress? Keith didn't waste breath on answers. He fought with the focused intensity that had made him the Red Paladin. Each strike calculated to test Dooku's defenses while protecting his own vulnerabilities. The count was faster. The Force gave him speed Keith couldn't match. But Keith had fought opponents with supernatural abilities before. Speed wasn't everything. Dooku's blade found an opening, burning a line across Keith's armor that made him gasp with pain. The Count pressed his advantage, driving Keith backward with strikes that were both beautiful and lethal. You fight well, Dooku acknowledged, for someone so young, but you lack training in true combat arts. Your technique is self-taught, improvised, effective against common soldiers perhaps, but against a Sith Lord? His blade moved in a complex pattern that left Keith scrambling to defend. You're outmatched, boy. Keith's back hit the containment field generator, trapped. Dooku's blade rose for a killing strike, and Red Lion's head crashed through the research bay wall, her jaws clamping down on Dooku with force that should have crushed him. The Count managed to throw up a force barrier at the last second, the invisible shield barely holding against Red's bite. He strained, sweat beading on his forehead, as Keith used the distraction to slash his Bayard across the containment controls. Green Lion's restraints deactivated. The energy fields failed. And from her cockpit, still visible through Green's open mouth, Pidge's voice crackled, "Did someone call for an extraction? Because I am so ready to get out of here." "Pidge." Keith felt relief flood through him. "You're okay." "Define okay," Pidge replied as Green Lion activated fully, her systems coming online with a harmonics that resonated through Keith's connection to Red. "I've been interrogated for weeks. My lion was turned into a science experiment, and I'm about 3 seconds from losing my mind. But yeah, I'm alive. Now can we please destroy this place and find Allura?" Dooku had fallen back, releasing his force barrier as Red released her grip. The Count looked between the two lions, his tactical mind clearly recalculating. 1 lion he might handle. 2, working in perfect coordination, was a different equation entirely. "This isn't over," Dooku said, backing toward the exit. "The Separatist Alliance will study your technology. We'll learn to replicate your lions, and when we do, the Republic will face an army of Voltron-class weapons. Consider that, young paladins. Your very presence here may doom the galaxy you're trying to help." He vanished through the door, moving with force-enhanced speed that neither Keith nor Pidge could match. "Should we chase him?" Pidge asked. "Negative," Keith replied, already moving Red toward the exit. "We've got what we came for. Lance, Hunk, status?" "Just finished picking up your scattered armor and weapons," Lance transmitted, his voice carrying satisfaction. "Pidge, we've got all your stuff, including that laptop you always carry everywhere. Also, can I just say, you left a really impressive virus in the Separatist computer system. It's currently deleting their entire research database on Voltron tech. Nice work." "Always leave a trap for the bad guys," Pidge replied, and Keith could hear the smile in her voice. "Okay, Team's almost back together. We've got red, blue, yellow, and green. Now we just need to find Allura and Paladins. This is Anakin Skywalker. The Jedi's voice cut into their frequency, urgent and strained. I'm reading massive energy signatures at these coordinates. It's not separatist, it's not republic. It's something I've never seen before, and it's putting off power readings that match your lions. I think, he paused, I think it might be your missing teammate. Keith's heart rate spiked. Send coordinates, we're on our way. The location Anakin transmitted was in the unknown regions, the unexplored territories beyond charted republic space. The kind of place where jump ships disappeared and were never heard from again. But if Allura was there... All lions, form up on me, Keith commanded. We're going after Allura, together this time, no more separations. 3 lions, red, blue, and yellow, converged in space above Obadiah. Green launched from the fortress, leaving behind smoking ruins and disabled separatist forces. They moved in formation, 4/5 of Voltron reunited, heading toward coordinates that promised their 5th teammate. Behind them, Count Dooku watched their departure from a safe distance, his mind already calculating. These paladins were formidable. Their lions were beyond any technology the separatists possessed. But they were also emotionally vulnerable. They prioritized their teammates above tactical considerations. That was a weakness. One he would exploit when the time came. But for now, he had research data to salvage and a report to make to his master. Darth Sidious would be very interested in these beings from another galaxy. Very interested indeed. The unknown regions lived up to their name. 4 lions traveled through hyperspace toward coordinates that shouldn't have existed, following an energy signature that defied Republic sensors. Anakin's Republic cruiser accompanied them, the Jedi General having insisted on supporting the rescue operation despite Obi-Wan's protests about reckless attachment to strangers from another dimension. So, Keith, Lance transmitted across their private channel, want to explain why we're heading into the most dangerous, unexplored region of space based on energy readings that might not even be Allura? Because it's our only lead, Keith replied. And because if there's even a chance she's there, we're taking it. We don't leave paladins behind. Not arguing, Lance said quickly. Just, man, I missed you guys. All of you. Being separated, not knowing if you were alive. His voice caught. Don't do that to me again, okay? Agreed, Hunk added. Voltron works because we're together, alone. We're just people in advanced war machines. Together we're defenders of the universe. I vote we never split up again. Seconded, Pidge said. Also, Keith, we need to talk about your combat technique. I was watching your fight with that Dooku guy through green sensors. You almost got killed because you were fighting alone. We're stronger together, remember? I remember, Keith said quietly. And you're right. I should have waited for backup. But Pidge, when I saw Green in that research lab, saw what they were doing to her, I couldn't wait. I couldn't risk them moving her or hurting her worse. I know, Pidge replied, her voice softening. And I appreciate it. Green does too. But Keith, we're paladins. We protect each other. That includes you protecting yourself enough to stay alive for the rest of us. Before Keith could respond, all 4 Lions' sensors simultaneously screamed warnings. They dropped out of hyperspace into a system that looked like something from a nightmare. The star was dying, a red giant whose bloated surface pulsed with unstable energy. Around it orbited a single massive structure, artificial rather than natural, humming with power that made even Voltron's lions register caution. And at the structure's heart, barely visible through layers of defensive shielding, the Castle of Lions. That's the castle, Hunk shouted. How did it get here? We were all pulled through the wormhole together. The castle should have ended up in the same general area as us. Unless someone took it, Pidge said, her analytical mind already working the problem. The castle's teludav was damaged in transit. If it emerged somewhere hostile, if someone captured it. She pulled up sensor readings. Keith, I'm reading Altine energy signatures from that structure, but there are also other signatures, unknown and powerful. I don't care who's there, Keith said, Red Lion already accelerating toward the structure. Allura's in that castle. We're getting her back. Paladins, wait! Anakin's voice cut in urgently. I'm sensing. There's something dark about that structure. Something wrong. The Force is screaming warnings. You shouldn't approach without... Without what? Keith demanded. Without knowing what we're facing? Without proper reconnaissance? Anakin, I appreciate your help, but one of ours is in there. We're not waiting. 4 lions accelerated toward the structure, their paladins united in purpose despite the danger. They'd been separated for weeks, scattered across an unfamiliar galaxy, fighting alone when they were strongest together. That ended now. Whatever waited in that structure, whoever had taken the Castle of Lions, was about to learn what happened when you threatened a paladin of Voltron. And 4/5 of Voltron was more than enough to make that lesson very, very clear. The structure orbiting the dying star was a fortress built by beings who understood warfare on a scale that dwarfed even the Clone Wars. Its walls were reinforced with alloys that made Durasteel look like tissue paper. Its weapon systems tracked the approaching lions with targeting solutions that suggested artificial intelligence far beyond separatist battle droids. And at its heart, held within containment fields that hummed with barely restrained power, sat the Castle of Lions. Princess Allura stood in the castle's bridge, her hands pressed against a transparent energy barrier that prevented her from accessing any controls. She'd been a prisoner for 3 weeks, ever since the damaged Teludav had deposited her castle directly into the hands of beings who viewed advanced technology as treasure to be claimed. Her captors called themselves the Zagarian Slave Empire. They dealt in living beings, treating sentience as currency and freedom as a commodity to be bought and sold. When the castle had emerged in their territory, damaged and vulnerable, they'd seized it immediately. Allura had fought, of course, had used every combat technique her father had taught her, every strategic principle she'd learned as a princess of Altea. It hadn't been enough. Now she watched through the castle's external sensors as 4 familiar shapes approached the fortress. Red, blue, yellow, and green. Her lions, her paladins, her team. Relief and terror warred in her chest. Relief because they were alive and had found her. Terror because they were walking into a trap. Your friends come to rescue you, a voice purred behind her. Queen Mirage Sintel, ruler of the Zagarian Slave Empire, watched the approaching lions with predatory interest. How touching. 4 warriors piloting impossible war machines, charging into danger for their lost companion. Such loyalty would be admirable if it weren't so foolish. They're not warriors, Allura said quietly, her voice carrying the steel of Altine royalty despite her captivity. They're paladins, defenders of the universe. And you made a critical mistake when you captured me. My team doesn't negotiate with slavers. They don't retreat from superior numbers. They simply win. We shall see, Mirage replied. She gestured, and holographic displays lit up across the castle's bridge, showing defensive systems activating throughout the fortress. I've studied your lions during your captivity, Princess. Impressive technology, truly. The bond between pilot and machine is unlike anything in this galaxy. But your paladins are still organic beings. They can be overwhelmed. They can be broken. And when they are, I will claim all 5 of your lions. Such prizes will make the Zagarian Empire the most powerful force in known space. Allura said nothing, but in her mind, she reached out through her bond with the castle, feeling the connections to all 5 lions resonating across space. The paladins were coming, and more importantly, they were coming together. The Zagarians were about to learn why that mattered. Keith led the formation as 4 lions descended on the fortress, his connection to Red burning with anticipation. After weeks of being separated, after fighting alone, after wondering if he'd ever see his team whole again, they were finally about to complete the reunion. 1 more paladin, 1 more lion, and then... Defensive systems activating, Pidge called out from green. I'm reading energy weapons, missile batteries, and some kind of tractor beam technology. Keith, they're trying to lock onto us. Evasive pattern Delta, Keith commanded, trusting his team to remember formations they'd practiced 1,000 times. Don't let them get a lock. Lance, can you take out those weapon emplacements? Blue and I are on it. Lance's targeting computer already had solutions. His shots were surgical, each one finding a power conduit or control system, disabling weapons without destroying the fortress itself. They needed the structure intact if the castle was inside. I'm detecting the castle's energy signature, Hunk reported. Yellow's heavy armor absorbing fire that would have destroyed lesser ships. Dead center of the structure, heavily shielded. And guys, there's something else. I'm reading Altine biosigns. Allura's alive. Then we go get her, Keith said simply. Pidge, can you hack their systems? Find us an entrance that doesn't involve blowing through 5 layers of reinforced hull. Working on it, Pidge replied. Green's technological warfare capabilities already infiltrating the fortress's computer networks. These systems are way more advanced than Separatist tech, but the underlying architecture is similar. Give me 30 seconds and got it. There's a hangar bay on the eastern face. I'm opening the doors now. The fortress's hangar bay doors ground open, revealing a cavernous space large enough to accommodate all 4 lions. It was too easy. Obviously a trap. Keith didn't care. All lions, we're going in. Stay sharp and watch each other's backs. We get the castle, we get Allura, and we get out. Anyone who tries to stop us. His voice hardened. We've all had a really bad few weeks. I'm not in the mood for mercy if they push this. 4 lions entered the hangar, touching down with synchronized precision. The paladins emerged from their cockpits, bayards ready, moving in a tactical formation they'd perfected through years of combat. Keith felt his team's presence like a physical weight, Lance covering his right, Hunk his left, Pidge providing overwatch from elevated position. Together, finally. Welcome, paladins of Voltron, a voice echoed through the hangar, female, cultured, dripping with the confidence of someone used to absolute power. I am Queen Mirage Sintel, and this fortress is my domain. You've come for your castle and your princess. How delightfully predictable. Where's Allura? Keith demanded, his Bayard sword glowing with barely restrained energy. Give her back, return our castle, and we'll leave peacefully. Otherwise, he gestured at the 4 lions behind them. We get violent. Such confidence from one so young. Mirage's voice carried amusement. You believe 4 lions are sufficient to threaten my fortress? Allow me to disabuse you of that notion. The hangar bay's walls split open, revealing dozens of war machines, not battle droids, but living soldiers in powered armor, wielding energy weapons that made Separatist equipment look primitive. Zygarian slavers, Keith realized. And behind them, larger shapes were emerging from the shadows, massive combat mechs that dwarfed even the lions. We've studied your technology during the princess's captivity, Mirage continued. We know your lions are formidable individually, but you've been separated for weeks. Your coordination is rusty. Your formations are imperfect. You're strong, yes, but are you strong enough? The Zygarian forces attacked. What followed was controlled chaos. Lance's sharpshooting picked off targets with precision that made enemy commanders scream contradictory orders. Hunk's heavy armor and cannons held the center line, absorbing fire that would have killed his teammates. Pidge danced through the battlefield like a ghost, her cloaking systems and technical warfare creating confusion in enemy ranks. And Keith. Keith fought with the fury of someone who'd been alone too long, his blade of Marmora training combining with paladin instincts to make him a whirlwind of destruction. But they were rusty. Keith had been right to worry. Lance's covering fire was a half-second slower than it should have been. Hunk's positioning left gaps in their defensive formation. Pidge's technical warfare was less synchronized with the team's physical assault. And Keith himself was fighting too aggressively, exposing flanks he'd normally protect. They were winning, but barely, and against enemies weaker than what Voltron typically faced. We're out of sync, Keith shouted over the battle's chaos. Fall back to the lions. Keith, we can't leave without Allura, Lance protested, even as his Bayard rifle dropped 3 more Zygarian soldiers. We're not leaving, Keith shot back. But we need to be together, all of us. Retreat to defensive position. The paladins fell back toward their lions, fighting a rearguard action that cost them ground but preserved their lives. They'd almost reached the relative safety of the lions' cover when the hangar bay's main doors opened, revealing something that made even Keith's combat-hardened instincts scream danger. A massive figure strode through, humanoid but clearly augmented with technology that made Cyborg look primitive. Its armor was Mandalorian in style, but Zygarian in decoration, and it moved with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight. Most terrifyingly, it radiated power that reminded Keith uncomfortably of Zarkon at his peak. I am Atai Molek, the figure announced, its voice mechanically enhanced to carry across the entire hangar. Champion of the Zygarian Empire, slayer of Jedi, and soon-to-be master of your lions. You fought well, paladins, but this ends now. The champion raised one hand, and Keith felt something he'd never experienced before. His connection to Red Lion, the bond that defined him as a paladin, suddenly strained as if invisible hands were trying to tear it apart. Around him, his teammates gasped as they felt the same assault on their own bonds. Did you think you were the only ones who could interface with sentient machines? Atai laughed. The Zygarian Empire has enslaved empaths, technopaths, beings whose abilities allow them to dominate artificial intelligence and mechanical systems. Your lions are impressive, but they are still machines. And machines can be controlled. Red Lion roared, a sound of pain and defiance that tore through Keith's mind. The champion was trying to dominate his lion, to break their bond and claim Red for himself. Keith felt Red fighting back, her consciousness burning with fury, but the assault was overwhelming. No! Keith charged the champion, Bayard blazing. You don't touch my lion. Atai batted him aside casually, the champion's augmented strength making Keith's attack look like a child's tantrum. Foolish boy, your bond makes you vulnerable. Love for your machine, attachment to your team. These are weaknesses. And in the Zygarian Empire, we exploit weakness. Lance, Hunk, and Pidge were experiencing similar assaults, their bonds with their lions strained to breaking. If those bonds snapped, they wouldn't be paladins anymore. They'd be pilots without purpose, warriors without their partners, humans separated from the other half of their souls. Let them go! A new voice rang out, carrying authority that made even Atai pause. Allura emerged from the hangar's far entrance, no longer a prisoner but a princess in full Altine combat regalia. Her armor gleamed with quintessence energy, and her eyes blazed with power that came from being not just the pink paladin, but the heir to Altine civilization. You dare attack my paladins! Allura's voice resonated with harmonics that suggested she was drawing on the castle's power systems. You dare threaten the lions of Voltron? I am Princess Allura of Altea, and I will not allow it. She thrust her hands forward, and brilliant blue energy erupted from her fingertips. Not Bayard energy, but pure quintessence channeled through Altine royal blood. The energy struck the invisible bonds Atai was using to attack the paladin's lions, shattering them like glass. The champion staggered, clearly not expecting resistance at that level. Impossible. No being should be able to counter psionic assault through raw energy projection. I am Altine, Allura replied coldly. My people mastered quintessence while your empire was learning to build shackles. Your champion is impressive. Your fortress is formidable. But you made one critical mistake. She smiled, fierce and beautiful, and absolutely terrifying. You gave my paladins time to reunite, and Voltron cannot be stopped by slavers. Keith felt his bond with Red snap back into place, stronger than before, burning with renewed purpose. Around him, his teammates were experiencing the same restoration, Lance's connection to blue, Hunk's link with yellow, Pidge's synchronization with green. They were whole again. They were together. They were paladins. Allura! Keith called out. "We need to form Voltron, now!" "Agreed." Allura was already running toward the pink lion. No, the blue lion. Keith realized she'd been piloting Blue since Lance had taken Red during their last mission before the separation. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that all 5 paladins and all 5 lions were finally in the same place at the same time. "Everyone to your lions," Keith commanded. "Formation sequence." "Finally!" Lance whooped, sprinting toward Blue. No, toward Red. Keith's brain caught up. During their separation, everyone had been piloting different lions. They needed to sort out who was piloting what before. "Keith, there's no time," Allura transmitted. "The Zygarians are launching their heavy weapons. We need Voltron now, in whatever configuration we can manage." Keith made a split-second decision. "Everyone take the lion they've been piloting. We'll sort out proper assignments later. Form Voltron." 5 paladins launched their lions into the air simultaneously, the hangar bay's ceiling exploding outward as they rocketed into space. The Zygarian fortress's weapons tried to track them, but the lions moved with synchronization that only perfect bonds could achieve. "Activate interlock," Keith commanded, feeling the familiar sequence beginning. "Dinotherms connected." "Infracells up," Lance added. "Mega thrusters are go," Hunk confirmed. "Let's form Voltron," Pidge shouted. The lions came together in a sequence that had been perfected through 100 battles. Red and green formed the legs. Yellow and blue created the arms. And at the center, holding everything together, the pink lion, piloted by Allura, became the torso and head. Light erupted as quintessence bonds locked into place. Individual consciousnesses merged while maintaining their identities. 5 became 1 became 5, existing in quantum superposition that defied physics but embodied the principle that Voltron represented. Unity, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. When the light faded, a figure stood in space above the Zygarian fortress. 100 meters tall, humanoid in shape but alien in construction, blazing with power that made even dying stars look dim by comparison. Voltron, defender of the universe, had formed. And the Zygarian Empire was about to learn why civilizations across multiple galaxies had learned to fear and respect that name. Inside Voltron's consciousness space, a place where all 5 paladins existed simultaneously while maintaining individual perspectives, Keith felt his team's presence like he hadn't in weeks. Lance's determination and skill, Hunk's strength and loyalty, Pidge's brilliance and fierce protectiveness, Allura's power and grace. Together, whole, complete. "I miss this," Keith said aloud, knowing his team would hear. "I missed all of you." "Later," Allura replied, but her voice carried warmth beneath the tactical focus. "Right now, we have a slave empire to dismantle. Paladins, show them why Voltron doesn't negotiate with those who trade in suffering." The Zygarian fortress launched everything it had. Missiles by the hundreds, energy beams capable of cracking moons, tractor fields designed to immobilize capital ships. All of it struck Voltron's shields and simply stopped, dissipated, absorbed. The defender of the universe had faced threats far beyond anything this fortress represented. Voltron moved with impossible grace for something its size. The massive construct's right arm extended, and from its hand emerged the blazing sword, a weapon forged from pure quintessence, capable of cutting through any physical matter. The sword's edge glowed with light that had ended battles before they'd truly begun. One strike. That's all it took. The blazing sword cut through the Zygarian fortress like a hot knife through snow, severing its weapon systems and power grid while carefully avoiding the sections containing prisoners. The massive structure shuddered, died, and began drifting powerlessly in space. "Paladins, this is Anakin," the Jedi's voice transmitted from his nearby cruiser. "I'm reading life signs throughout that fortress. Prisoners, forced laborers, beings in captivity. Voltron is powerful, but can you help them?" "That's why we're here," Keith replied through Voltron's communication system. "Lance, Hunk, coordinate with Anakin's forces. Begin prisoner extraction protocols. Pidge, Hack what's left of their systems and locate all holding cells. Allura, can the castle provide medical support? Already deploying healing pods, Allura confirmed. Karan's been working on repairs while I was captive. We're not at full capacity, but we can help. What followed was perhaps the most important thing Voltron had done in months. Not destruction, but salvation. Republic forces and paladins worked together to evacuate thousands of enslaved beings from the Zigarian fortress. Medical teams treated injuries and malnutrition. The Castle of Lions provided technological support that made Republic equipment look primitive by comparison. And through it all, Voltron stood guard. A defender, not just in name, but in purpose. Protecting the freed, ensuring the slavers couldn't retaliate, proving that power meant nothing if it wasn't used to help those who needed it most. 6 hours later, after the last prisoner had been safely extracted and the Zigarian command staff taken into Republic custody, the paladins gathered in the Castle of Lions Bridge, truly together for the first time since the wormhole accident. "We need to talk about getting home," Pidge said, already analyzing data on the dimensional rift that had brought them here. "The wormhole that stranded us, it was unstable, but the underlying technology is still sound. If I can find the right quantum frequency, analyze the dimensional barriers between universes, I might be able to replicate the jump that brought us here. But in reverse. Controlled, this time." "How long?" Keith asked. "Weeks, maybe months." Pidge looked up from her console, meeting his eyes. "Keith, we're stuck here until I can figure this out. And even then, there's no guarantee I can get us home." Keith looked at his team. His family, really. Lance with his easy grin despite the exhaustion. Hunk already checking systems and making sure everyone was properly fed. Pidge's analytical mind already working the problem that would get them home. And Allura, their princess and leader, who'd survived captivity without breaking. "Then we make ourselves useful while we're here," Keith decided. "The Republic is fighting a war. The Separatists are no better than the Galra, using droid armies to commit atrocities, enslaving entire populations, treating sentient beings as obstacles. We're paladins of Voltron. Defending the universe is what we do. Doesn't matter if it's our universe or not." "Agreed," Allura said firmly. "We stay, we fight, we help. And when Pidge figures out how to get us home," she smiled, "we'll have made a difference here. Left this galaxy better than we found it. That's the Voltron legacy." "I can work with that," Lance said. "Though, can we maybe stay together this time? Being separated sucked. I vote we never split up again." "Seconded," Hunk added. "Voltron works because we're a team. 5 lions, 5 paladins, 1 unstoppable defender. Let's keep it that way." "Agreed," Keith said. And for the first time in weeks, he felt something like peace. They were together. They were whole. They were Voltron. And the Clone Wars, which had been grinding toward Republic defeat before their arrival, was about to discover what happened when the Defender of the Universe decided to get involved. The arrival of Voltron changed the Clone Wars in ways that historians would debate for generations. The Separatist Alliance, which had been winning through superior numbers and droid armies that felt no fear or fatigue, suddenly faced an opponent they couldn't overwhelm or intimidate. Voltron didn't conquer territory. That wasn't what paladins did. But they defended. They protected. They showed up wherever the Separatists committed their worst atrocities and simply stopped them. Count Dooku tried to replicate Lion technology. He failed. The bond between Paladin and Lion couldn't be manufactured or programmed. It had to be earned, chosen, made real through connection that transcended simple pilot vehicle dynamics. Every attempt to create artificial lions resulted in impressive war machines. Yes, but none of them could match even 1/10 of Voltron's capabilities. General Grievous tried to hunt the Paladins directly, seeing them as worthy opponents for his collection. He failed. Voltron could disassemble and fight as 5 individual lions when necessary, making concentrated assault impossible. And when they formed Voltron, Even Grievous's multiple lightsabers and combat experience couldn't overcome a 100-meter defender wielding a blazing sword. The Republic learned to coordinate with Voltron's unpredictable tactical style. Jedi generals like Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan discovered that having paladins as backup made impossible missions merely difficult. Clone troopers trained alongside Hunk, learning engineering techniques that saved countless lives. Republic Navy officers studied Lance's sharpshooting tactics, revolutionizing their fighter combat doctrine. And everywhere Voltron appeared, hope followed. Populations under Separatist occupation looked to the skies and knew that if the massive robot defender showed up, liberation wasn't far behind. Children drew pictures of the lions. Refugees told stories about paladins who'd saved them from slavery or execution. Voltron became a legend, proof that even in the Clone Wars' darkest hours, heroes still existed. Keith never returned to his home galaxy. Pidge worked for 3 years on the dimensional technology, made incredible progress, proved theoretically that return was possible. But the quantum variables were too unstable. The Paladins were stranded, separated from the universe they'd sworn to defend, stuck in a galaxy that wasn't their own. They made it their mission anyway. Lance found a kind of family among the clone troopers, whose brotherhood reminded him of the garrison cadets he'd trained with before becoming a Paladin. He taught them that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but fighting despite it. That humor in dark times wasn't disrespect. It was survival. That every life mattered, clone or civilian, because people were never just numbers. Hunk became a legend among Republic engineers, his Yellow Lion's repair capabilities saving fleets that would have been lost. But more than that, he reminded the war-weary soldiers that kindness wasn't weakness, that protecting people meant keeping them fed, housed, and safe, not just defending them from enemies. That engineering wasn't just about building better weapons, but creating better futures. Pidge's technical warfare capabilities made her invaluable to Republic intelligence, but she used that position to ensure surveillance never became oppression. She taught that technology was a tool that reflected its users' values. That knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. That the smartest person in the room had a responsibility to make everyone else smarter too. Allura brought Altine diplomatic principles to Republic governance, showing that strength and compassion weren't opposites but complements. She proved that true leadership meant serving those you governed, not ruling them. That power earned through position meant nothing compared to respect earned through action. And Keith never stopped being the Paladin who'd crashed onto Christophsis alone, desperate to reunite his team. But he learned to temper his impulsiveness with Anakin's strategic brilliance, his aggression with Obi-Wan's patience, his determination with Ahsoka's adaptability. He remained the Red Paladin, the leader, the one who charged into danger first. But now he did it with a team that would always follow, always support, always stand beside him. Voltron formed countless times during the Clone Wars. Each time, the galaxy witnessed power that transcended military might. 5 individuals becoming something greater, proving that unity could achieve what division never would. Separatist armies that should have won through superior numbers learned that morale and coordination mattered more than droid counts. Republic forces that should have been overwhelmed learned that sometimes having the right allies meant everything. The Clone Wars eventually ended, though not the way anyone expected. The Sith Lord orchestrating everything from the shadows made his move, activated Order 66, tried to establish his empire through the systematic execution of Jedi across the galaxy. He didn't account for Voltron. The Paladins, who'd spent years fighting alongside Jedi, who'd learned to respect and value Force users as allies and friends, intervened. They couldn't save all the Jedi. No one could. The betrayal was too comprehensive, too sudden. But they saved hundreds. Spirited them away to Castle of Lions, protected them from purged troopers and inquisitors, gave them sanctuary when the galaxy offered none. The Empire rose anyway. Palpatine's planning was too thorough to be completely countered, but it rose weaker than it should have been. Rose knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, 5 paladins piloting impossible lions stood ready to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. Rose understanding that tyranny would always face resistance from those who believed in something greater than power. 20 years later, when a young moisture farmer named Luke Skywalker found himself pulled into a conflict between Empire and Rebellion, he would learn about Voltron from the scattered Jedi who'd survived, would hear stories about defenders from another galaxy who'd proven that heroism wasn't about where you came from, but what you stood for. And when the Rebellion needed inspiration, when hope seemed lost, when the Death Star loomed and the Emperor's power appeared absolute, they remembered the Paladins. Remembered that 5 individuals from another universe had chosen to fight for a galaxy that wasn't even their own, simply because it was the right thing to do. Voltron never formed again after the Clone Wars ended. The Paladins went their separate ways, not in conflict, but in purpose. Keith worked with the Rebel Alliance, training pilots and conducting guerrilla operations. Lance became a symbol of hope across occupied worlds, proving the Empire couldn't break human spirit. Hunk built and maintained the Rebellion's technological infrastructure, keeping their fleets operational against impossible odds. Pidge worked in the shadows, cyber warfare against Imperial systems, ensuring the Empire's surveillance apparatus had holes large enough for freedom to slip through. And Allura. Allura became what she'd always been, a princess determined to preserve what goodness remained, even in the darkest times. They never found their way home, never returned to the universe where the Galra still threatened, where Loder's plot still unfolded, where the war they'd left behind continued without them. But they found purpose here, found meaning in defending a galaxy that had welcomed them as refugees, protected them when they were scattered and vulnerable, given them a cause worth fighting for even when it wasn't technically their fight. Years later, Keith, now older, scarred by decades of combat, but still the Red Paladin in spirit, if not in active duty, would sit with young rebel pilots and tell them about Voltron, about 5 lions that came from another universe, about paladins who defended the universe because that's what defenders did, about the principle that had guided them through every battle, every loss, every impossible situation. Unity creates strength, diversity creates innovation, compassion creates purpose, and sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand up for someone who can't stand up for themselves, even if they're from a different galaxy. Even if they speak a different language, even if their problems aren't technically yours. Because at the end of the day, there was no us and them. There were only people who needed help, and people capable of giving it. Voltron might have been the defender of the universe, but the Paladins taught the Star Wars galaxy something more important, that everyone, regardless of power or position or origin, could be a defender. That heroism wasn't about giant robots or ancient weapons or mystical powers. It was about choosing to act when action was needed, standing when others fell, and believing that tomorrow could be better than today if enough people worked to make it so. The Lions of Voltron eventually fell silent, their paladins aging beyond the ability to pilot them. But the principles they represented, unity, courage, compassion, determination, echoed across generations. And when Luke Skywalker stood before Emperor Palpatine and declared himself a Jedi like his father before him, when he refused the dark side despite overwhelming pressure, when he proved that compassion could defeat hatred, the spirit of Voltron lived in that moment. Defender of the universe, protectors of the innocent. Proof that 5 individuals, united by purpose and bond, could change the fate of entire civilizations. The Paladins of Voltron had crashed into the Star Wars galaxy by accident, but they'd saved it by choice, and that made all the difference.